Well, hello, and a very warm welcome back to the Andrew Eborn Show with me, Andrew Eborn. And today I'm delighted to have Lee Sato, a debut novelist whose gripping storytelling draws from over 3 decades of profound work in some of society's toughest fields. From her early days working with gangs in the 1980s to her time in adolescent and child psychiatry in the 1990s to investigating crimes against children alongside law enforcement and the FBI until her retirement in 2017. Leah's career has been a testament to her commitment to justice. Well, now she's poured that experience into her debut novel, Hornet's Nest, the first in the Jara Quinn series. It's published by Launch Point Press. It was just published on the July the 25th this year. Lee is based in Indianapolis with her partner of 20 years and their beloved doodle dogs, Truffle and Rue. Lee is already crafting her second and third books. Lee, it's a joy to have you on the Andrew Eborn Show.
Hi, thank you very much.
And what I love is your backdrop. You're publicizing your book. That's the cover, isn't it?
Definitely, definitely.
Fantastic stuff. Now,
And if you notice, right there is a queen bee, actually.
I can tell the queen bee. I spotted that a
Yes.
mile off. I thought the queen bees were a bit larger than the other ones, weren't they?
Nope, they're the same, just kind of a little tidbit in there for people to find.
Oh, good. Okay, well, fantastic stuff. Well, I want to take you all the way back. It's a fascinating career which has shaped this particular book.
Mhm.
Growing up, then, talk to me about, Lee, what experience or people shaped your interest in psychology and journalism, and how did those early passions at Franklin College influence your later career choices?
I initially went to Franklin College on a journalism scholarship and realized that I'd rather do storytelling and creative writing than tell the news and have a deadline. So I changed my major to psychology, which I enjoyed tremendously. It was very exciting, just so many new things happening. And I just went from there. I just started to, being a young kid from the middle of nowhere in the country to working with gangs from Chicago and Detroit. I grew up very fast and just continued along that path.
Yeah, you say working with gangs. Well, what did your work involve?
I was they called it I was a counselor for Atterbury Job Corps, which is a federal program in the United States. And what happened was a lot of gang members from Chicago and Detroit that were either A, trying to get out of gangs, or B, trying to run from the law, came to Atterbury. And I learned about the Gangster Disciples, the Latin Kings, MS-13. We had quite a number of gang affiliation there, and it was very eye-opening, but a good learning experience.
So you say eye-opening. I think that's firstly it's incredibly brave for anybody to get involved in these gangs and wonderful if you can set people on the right path. What was the most eye-opening moment?
What I learned was they were looking for family. All of these kids were mostly from broken homes, from abusive homes. They were looking for a sense of belonging, a sense of family, and I had absolutely nothing in common with any of these kids. I grew up in rural Indiana, very white bread, everything. And these gangs were mostly African American, and they, as long as you treated them with respect, you received respect. And I never, and I don't know if this is brave or stupid, but I never felt unsafe with these guys ever. Um, and it was just they taught me a lot.
And it is interesting, isn't it? Patterns throughout history. It is that
Oh,
need for a sense of belonging, isn't it? That's the
definitely.
reality. And you have a look. So talk then. I mean, was there a pivotal moment from your childhood or young adulthood that sparked your drive to work in these high-stake, emotionally charged fields like gang intervention and child psychiatry?
Um, yes. It's kind of a personal thing. I have a situation from my childhood that an abusive situation from a family member, And I had to deal with that, and that was a sexual molestation issue, and I had to deal with those triggers. And I found that when I ended up going to Job Corps, that 80% boys and girls had been sexually abused there, and there was no help for them. And so they turned to the gangs, they turned to drugs, they turned to promiscuity, they turned to all of these things. And then I realized I do have things in common with them, and there for the grace of God go I. And so we just connected.
Yeah, and we talked about your gang work as well. And
Hmm.
in the 1980s, you worked directly with gangs, a time and role that must have been incredibly intense. What drew you particularly to that work, and how did those experiences lay the groundwork for your later career and writing?
Well, it was the 1980s, and the gangs in Chicago, especially, were very prominent. Um, I didn't necessarily know I was going to work with gangs until I got there. I thought I was going to just be that wonderful little counselor in the office that led people on their way to a better life. And that didn't happen. There was a lot of disappointment and a lot of me seeing potential in them and them not seeing it. Um, I left there. I was there for about 2.5 years. We had some really sad things. We had some um, two suicides. We had a murder that happened. I mean, just some very horrible things happened, and it the federal government wasn't backing us up and giving us the resources we needed. So I felt that I needed to move on, and so I did.
Yeah, and as you say, harrowing experiences. And
Yes.
looking back at that, you talk about suicide and things like that. There's a lot of people who be listening to this who may have experienced similar things in their family
Hmm.
members. It's much more common than people think. What advice would you give them?
That suicide is a permanent issue to a temporary problem. And you know that when you're in your darkest space, you don't see a way out of that. Um, I always ask, the adults, the kids, whoever I'm working with, I need to know one support person. If you can get one support person, um, then you can get through some of this. And people and it's feeling that way you shouldn't be shamed for it. This is a serious problem and this is a serious issue. Mental health is a stigma that people people aren't getting over, and we try, and there isn't a magic pill to help this. You need support, you need to not be shamed for it. And it's hard because you do lose some people.
And I think the reality is this, Lee, isn't it? If you injure yourself, you have a physical injury, you break your leg, everybody will come and sign the cast and you
Exactly.
can talk about it. But there always is a stigma about mental health. And
Oh, definitely.
I have a lot of people in the public eye who come on to the Andrew Eborn Show, and I encourage them to talk about it because what we have to do, I want us to be
Right.
the generation that talks about mental health so the next
Right.
generation doesn't suffer the stigma.
Well, talks about it and acts on it. Um, you know, Talking about it is wonderful. It's just we need to act on it now, and we need to get the programs out there for these people to be a part of. And we're lacking in that. There's a whole population that we are just not taking care of.
Yeah.
And you have children that have parents that have mental health issues. Um, and it sometimes it's genetic and the children receive that, but they're affected by their parents' mental health and or lack thereof.
Yeah. Now you've got a dual BA in psychology and journalism,
Mhm.
a delicious fusion of
And a different kind of fusion, yes.
yes. So how do these disciplines complement each other in your work with gang psychiatry and later investigation? And how do they show up in Hornet's Nest?
Um, all of the things that I worked with, whether it was at the psych hospital or later with the crimes against kids and the wonderful agencies that I got to work with. One thing that I learned when I was working with crimes against kids, I was in charge of most of the police reports throughout the state of Indiana. And it was very hard with my journalism degree not to correct the police reports. Just because it was like you can't write it that way. And I learned, if you don't document it, it didn't happen. And so the journalism part was very good in being able to write clearly what happened and be able to describe things that had happened and get it into court and have something done about it.
Yeah, and I think that that's so important. Communication is so
Mhm.
absolutely vital in addressing all sorts of issues. Now your work in the 1990s, you moved on from the crime side. They focus on adolescent and child psychiatry.
Right.
What was the most challenging aspect of that role, and how did it deepen your understanding of the human stories you now weave into your fiction?
There were two different things because I was there for 10 years. Um, the first 3 to 4 years were very tough. They were very physical. We went into situations with the knowledge that we were probably going to physically restrain someone. And that was tough. It was tough on my body. It was tough on my mental health. And, when you go into a situation acting like a hammer, everything's a nail. And you got to step back and de-escalate first. You have to be able to talk and communicate. And we went with a program from doing an average of 99 seclusions a month to two.
Wow.
And that was all because of communication and de-escalation and having a different mindset of respect. I can't push that enough, that respect is the common thing through everything.
Yeah, and I think
Um,
that's right. People always forget. I mean, people are people, whatever line of work
yes,
they're in. As Shakespeare so eloquently put it, if you prick me, do I not bleed? If you tickle me, do I not laugh?
exactly. Exactly. And like I said before, there for the grace of God go I.
Yeah,
At any point, any of these people could have been me.
yeah.
And um I was fortunate. They and so treating people with respect, not having a um control issue with a person that's schizophrenic is huge. Why would I want to do that? Um, but people do. People do, and we had to fight that a bit, change some attitudes, and it worked out. In the second half of being there, it really worked out. Um, and then we did some groundbreaking work at that point. This was in the 90s with autistic children.
Right.
And I had a wonderful psychiatrist that did groundbreaking work with autistic kids, and I loved it. I just loved it.
And it's fascinating, isn't it? Because we've come to understand. I'm never really a fan of labels because it's people talk about being on the spectrum, but it's so many different iterations of it. It's
Oh
not
yeah.
a recipe where everybody is exactly the same. They have,
Well, everybody's on the spectrum, no matter what spectrum it is.
and I think that's
Everybody.
important. But it is going back to your central point. It's about understanding and respect. And some of the best people in the world. I mean, Elon Musk has very publicly spoken about
Yes,
his Asperger's. I have his father Errol on the Andrew Eborn Show
uh-huh.
regularly, so unpacking all sorts of stories. And I think, as I say, more people in the public eye who speak out about it, and actually
Right.
we should normalize being different.
Yes, Steve Jobs. I mean, my goodness. You know, he was brilliant. He was different. And we respected him because he did things. Everyone should have that respect.
Yeah, no,
Everyone.
absolutely. Now your career culminated in working with law enforcement and the FBI
Right.
on crimes against children. What motivated you to take on such a heart-wrenching cases, and how did you cope with the emotional toil of that work?
Um, I knew that I wanted to work with CPS, with crimes against children. Um, because it was just a passion of mine, and I think that um, I got into it when and doing proactive things, which I loved. But then we ended up starting being reactive, and it was very tough. I did go for a year to nursing school, so I did have some medical knowledge. So I started getting the tough cases, the ones that were the medical trauma, the fatalities, the severe sexual abuse and physical abuse. So I didn't get some of the easy stuff. And then I ended up expanding, not just doing it for the county I lived in, but for the entire state. And it was eye-opening. I didn't realize how many children died in a year due to abuse and neglect, and it and trying to put something in place to be preventative instead of reactive.
Yeah, and it's very how you yourself cope. I mean, it's always interesting about those who are helping others because they themselves will still have issues, and
Mm-hmm.
who advises the therapist, if you like, on that sort of basis. But you said, I mean, publicly that justice and closure were rare
It
in
was rare.
your career. Can you share a specific moment or case that stayed with you and perhaps inspired a scene or theme in Hornet's Nest?
Um, well, I had three. I had three that really were pivotal. Um, the very first time I was on call for the crimes against children, I received a phone call from um the local children's hospital, Riley Hospital for Children. Wonderful, wonderful, fantastic hospital. And I received this call asking me to pull the plug on a 3-month-old baby. And she had been shaken to the point that she was not going to live through this. Um, of course, this was my first on call. I freaked out and called my boss, and I'm like, what do we do here? I think we need a court order for me to even, I haven't even seen this child. How am I going to end this child's life? And so we decided not to. And the girl ended up living, if you want to call it that, for 5 years. She was a vegetable. She was blind. She barely moved. She didn't talk. Um, she was horribly confined. And the person that did the crime barely got punished because of that. Um, during the after 5 years, she did pass away the very week he was charged with a B felony with time served. And so it was heart-wrenching. Um, I had a very good boss that said, "Hey, you do what you need to do, go to counseling, whatever you need to do," and I did. Was able to find a wonderful counselor at that time. Um, Another thing that happened was similar to what happened in the book. Um, the FBI had come in, and I worked a lot with the state police, with the FBI on human trafficking. We have a lot of large sports events in Indianapolis. We had the Super Bowl. We have the Indianapolis 500 every year, and human trafficking is a huge problem, huge problem. Um, and people don't realize it's human trafficking isn't just bringing young women over from Russia and putting them into brothels. It is picking kids up off the street, um, paying a CPS worker off to put a woman in jeopardy so that she gives her kids up to be groomed for a sexual experience. Um, that was very, working with the FBI and those things. And again, like I said, there wasn't a lot of closure to any of that. I didn't, you don't know, did so and so get punished or put in prison or anything like that. Um, but the thing that really pivoted my entire being was I had a situation where a gentleman, and I can't say too much about it without people knowing who it is.
Yeah.
He had um two other children that he had tried to kill. One he succeeded with. And then he had taken his family on a canoe trip, became very intoxicated on marijuana and alcohol, and he tipped the canoe over with a 2 and a 3-year-old baby in the canoe. Um, People were there around him, and the water was so swift. We had just had major rains. We had flooding that the two kids went underneath what was called a stringer, which is a huge pile of debris and sticks and things. One of the little girls, the older one, was able to climb through that mud and sticks and things and get her hand raised to have someone pull her out of that. The other girl we didn't find for 3 days. The family would not go back to the river, and myself and I brought my boss with me, but I had to go to the river and help pull her out and identify her. And it was and he got nothing. He was not prosecuted. um his other child was not taken away. It was a very sad, and I'm emotional now even talking about it. It was just a very, very sad experience.
I,
So no closure, no justice.
absolute no closure, no justice. I mean, some of the ways of getting therapy for yourself is through your writing, but those experiences are harrowing just talking about it now. But obviously, living through those every single day and realizing that maybe
And I
there.
was there about 20 years, so I had a few. Yeah.
No, you must have done. Now, I mean, talking about your writing, I mean, Jara Quinn is at the heart of your series. How
Yes.
did your early career experiences shape her character and motivations or worldview?
um I don't want to say that she is me or I am her, but a lot of her thinking is what I've gone through and what I've seen. Um, my parents did not pass away in a car accident, but they both have passed away. And so I've done a lot of doing things on my own. Um, and so being without an extended family, without that support, is kind of like what Jara does, and she kind of has her own sense of justice and her own moral code. um and she feels deeply, she loves deeply, and connects deeply.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about work being therapy and so on and so forth. I mean, obviously, as you say, there are things which still to this day
You're
haunt
right.
you with lingering faces and stories. Talk to me a bit more then about how writing Hornet's Nest helped you to process or reframe those experiences, and what do you hope readers will gain from its emotional authenticity?
um the what happened was this whole book initially became from a dream I had back in 2000. And I was commuting 90 some miles round trip, and decided that for my therapy, my for my own mental health, I wrote the book in my head while I was driving. And I the book from when it was conceived in 2000 and everything I've gone through since then, the book is different, a lot different. It's more mature. It is more. It shows that there are um, nicks in the system. That it's not all roses out there. And if someone is doing something bad, they're gonna immediately get caught and punished. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen that way. The reality is, you're lucky if someone gets the justice that they deserve. And so her mindset is kind of like that. Um, she will do her best as she possibly can. Um, but she has a moral code. She won't break that, no matter what political pressures are put on her. That's part of the book. The her love interest's father was wanting to run is running for president, and so he was putting political pressure and just not bending to that. I had a lot of pressure put on me by a lot of higher ups, no names mentioned, but a lot of higher ups to change outcomes that I was involved in.
Yeah, it is interesting, and sometimes it is good to call it out. I mean, people get labeled as whistleblowers and so on and so forth, but
Right.
I always say that sunlight is the best disinfectant.
Yes, definitely. Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
Open it up, put a light on it.
yeah, absolutely. So with your extensive background, how did you balance the gritty, I mean, it is gritty realism of your career experience with the need to craft an engaging, accessible story for readers in the Hornet's Nest?
Um, well, like I said, I did write most of it, in my mind for a few years doing the commute, and then I put it away. I didn't have time, energy, mental focus to do anything creative at all. Um, I was kind of going down a dark hole for a while because of all the things I've seen, all the things I've been a part of. Um, and then in 2007, well, 2016, I should say, I began getting severe, debilitating migraine headaches, and to the point that I did not feel safe doing my job, as in making life and death decisions for my job. And um, I went to my bosses and said, I'm going to be slower. I've got to really focus on my decisions here. And after a while, it came to the point of I need to leave. I need to leave for my own mental health, physical health. And so I did. I retired early in 2017. Um, I spent a good 2 years in intensive therapy. I don't remember about 9 months of my life after that. Um, and then I found my book. I found what I had written down back in 2000 and 2001 and 2002 because I had put some little scratches down. And I'm like, I need to do something about this.
Yeah.
And then I started doing it probably about 3 or 4 years ago. I started writing it. And then it just kept flowing and into three and four different books.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and it is always fascinating the creative process. And obviously, you've had support. You're in Indianapolis. You've
Yes.
got support of your partner and your wonderful doodle dogs. I haven't seen them though. Truffle and Rue, where are they? Are they close?
They are puppy daycare dropouts. Um, I had taken them this morning for an evaluation, and the little one, Rue, she was all about it. She wanted to see all of the dogs. The bigger dog was like, I'm not having it. I'm not going in there. You can't make me do this.
Yeah.
I'm going to plant my feet and not go. And so, um, yeah, I had to bring them back home. They're in the other room right now. Actually, I think they're outside chasing a squirrel.
Okay.
I think that's what's keeping them quiet, actually.
Yeah, but it's so important. We touched on this earlier on in the program, didn't we? About having somebody who you can unload, share things with. Talk
Definitely.
about then your relationship with your partner and how your partner helps you basically gain relief from the
Yes.
horrendous world you've been living in.
She and I have been together for 20 years. We have known each other though, since 1998. And I ended up with someone else for about 5 years, and we kept our friendship. During the 5 years that I was with someone else, I gained a second family, and that family was immensely supportive and still is. I still consider them my family. I still consider my ex-sister-in-law my sister. So I'm very fortunate in that, and they totally embraced my partner. Um, and so she's a nurse, and she sees things. So she has seen the down, the dirty, the ugly. And so we have been able to be support for each other and be able to vent and know that things are going to be okay in the next day.
And I think
Um,
that's so important. And as we
it's
said
very,
before, reach out to people, whoever that might be. So looking back, Lee, on your decades in gang work, psychiatry investigations, what's one lesson or insight from those early years that you carry into your writing today?
um, that goes into my writing. I would probably say, um, that there are so many different walks of life, that there are so many differences and so many experiences that each person has traveled, and we need to respect their process. Um, and not judge them for how they got through their process. And respect is a huge, it is a huge thing for me.
I think that's so important. Respect everybody, wherever they
Right.
come from.
No matter what it is.
Yeah, I always say walk a mile in somebody else's moccasins.
Right. Definitely.
Yeah. Finally, then, Lee, it's always wonderful to have you on the Andrew Eborn Show, and delight. Hopefully, you'll be coming back again to tell us
That would
more.
be wonderful.
But as you work on your second and third books,
Hmm.
are there specific moments or themes from your early career that you plan to explore further in Jara's journey? And what can readers expect next?
Um, well, the second book, like I say, it is written, but it's just being kind of tweaked right now, adding, subtracting, making sure things are consistent, and but there are a lot of twists in it, a lot of the second one is darker, a lot darker. There's um more murder involved. There was a murder in the first one, but there is more in the second. Um, and the processes that police go through to solve crimes. I'm huge on true crime shows and mysteries and solving things, and it goes back to the closure part of it. Um, and so the second one is definitely darker, but there is closure, and it brings in some characters from the first book, definitely, and it brings in a couple new people that are very colorful and show a different perspective on things. Um, One is a New York police detective that is based on a real police detective that I know, and he's very colorful in his work and in what he does. And then the third and the fourth, um, and I say third and fourth because I need to split them. I've It's more like a word vomit right now because it's 110,000 words and I'm not even close to half done. And
Right.
so I'm going to need to split that and figure out how to do that and bring it back around because it just kind of was it just kept flowing. Um but like I said, my partner has been amazingly supportive. She has there's a lot of times that I'll say, "No, wait a minute, my characters wouldn't have said that. How would you say it now? If
Yes.
you were angry with me, what would you say?" And she would say something, blah 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 blah. That's exactly it. Then okay,
Perfect. So she's in.
write it.
What's your partner called?
Her name's Mary.
Mary. Fantastic.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So if people want to find out more about you, which I'm sure they will, what's the best way of doing it?
I do have a Facebook page, Lee Sato, on Facebook. Right now, that's all. That's the one website that I have. I do have Launch Point Press. There are things about me through my publisher. It's a wonderful publishing house in Oregon for the LGBTQ community. Um, I am going to be doing some projects that aren't just LGBTQ that are going to expand, so I'm not really sure where I'm going to go with those. But those are all in the works too. It's just kind of a influx of things.
Fantastic. And now you
Yeah,
can
so
refer people to this video, this wonderful interview at the Andrew Eborn Show, and people can subscribe to that. More platforms than Paddington. It's an absolute delight to have you on the
wonderful.
show. Lee Sato, I wish you every success with the book and the next two as well. And I look forward to seeing your wonderful dogs next time.
Yes, I will try to get them to behave.
Fantastic. Thank you for joining me. Take care.
Thank you so much.